on the eve of the convention that will nominate the man who could become the first Mormon president.
Mormons do believe this is their moment in time, and they're very excited about it.
But most Americans say they know next to nothing about the Mormon Church. Tonight, a rare look inside the lives of modern Mormon families. The rules of living a good Mormon life.
I've never had a cup of coffee.
And some of the lesser-known aspects.
Oh, the garment.
Everybody always wants to know about that.
Magic underwear.
Also, why are so many Mormons so successful in business?
Just because you knocked on 200 doors on one day and were told they weren't interested doesn't mean the next day you don't do it anymore.
And how Mormons take care of their own.
There's sugar, there's salt, there's wheelchairs. This is mind-boggling.
A church still dealing with the issue of polygamy.
We believe that was actually God's will at the time.
And other issues of inequality.
My daughter says to me, "Mom, why don't girls pass the sacrament?"
Hello.
And we'll hear from the one cast member from the Book of Mormon.
My name is Elder Price.
Who's a Mormon.
I was raised Mormon.
That and more in tonight's special broadcast, Mormon in America. Good evening. While a hurricane may interfere with at least the start of the gathering, by the time the GOP convention in Tampa is over, a Mormon will be the nominee of a major political party for the first time. And Mitt Romney could well become the first Mormon president of the United States. He has become more forthright of late in discussing his religion, as he did with us during our interview 3 weeks ago in London.
Without question, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm proud of that. Some call that the Mormon Church. That's fine with me. I'll talk about my experiences in the church. There's no question they've helped shape my perspective.
A big part of that perspective, the experience he is running on in business, where many Mormons have excelled in this country. And so it's where we'll begin our hour here tonight with Harry Smith's look at what could be called Mormon Incorporated.
No other airline on the planet has this.
When David Neeleman started JetBlue in 1999, industry insiders thought he was out of his mind.
Hello, America!
A low-cost airline with individual TV screens, leather seats, and more legroom? Today, JetBlue flies more than 25 million passengers a year.
JetBlue seemed to have a different culture.
Well, number one, I wanted everyone who worked there to say it was the best job they ever had. Because I thought that the people who would fly with us would feel that.
What kind of jobs did you do at the airline?
I did everything. I loved working alongside of our crew members. And I would throw bags. I would load bags on an airplane.
Neeleman is a Mormon and proud of it.
Work hard, play hard, have a great family, stay together. Those are all things that are central to our faith, and it's how we're programmed.
Neeleman is not alone. Top executive positions at a number of major corporations either are or have been occupied by Mormons.
Why do you think Mormons are so good at business?
I think we're just serious about life. I mean, I think, we're taught that it's not bad to make money in life. It's not bad, but it's not your money. It's Heavenly Father's money, and you should be good stewards over that money.
That kind of thinking gets locked into many a Mormon when they spend 2 years in the mission field, a personal test of faith and courage. Neeleman was sent to Brazil.
Going on a mission is maybe the most important thing that happens in a young Mormon man's life. Was that the case with you?
Yeah, by far. I not only learned how to deal with people, I saw extreme poverty. I learned to love people like I had never loved before and to have compassion.
And you were 19?
I was 19. Got a letter in the mail, and it said, "You're hereby called to serve in the Brazil Rio de Janeiro mission for 2 years."
2 years away from home, trying to convince a skeptical world of the value of your faith turns out to be humbling and rewarding.
There are plenty of people saying, "No way, get out of my face." What does that teach you?
Just because you knocked on 200 doors on one day and were told they weren't interested doesn't mean the next day you don't do it anymore. You just go back and do it again.
It's a life-changing experience for them. It's like a fast track to seriousness.
There is a Mormon way of doing business, and Jeff Benedict wrote a book about it, detailing how a number of the Mormon executives he profiled returned from their missions ready to reach for the top.
When they come home at 21, they're not thinking about hanging out with guys, going to bars, going to football games. They're thinking about, how can I support my family as fast as possible?
And Benedict, himself a Mormon, says Mormon CEOs are groomed for the boardroom from an early age.
The most powerful influence in these guys' lives growing up is their mom. At a very young age, their mothers were teaching them elocution, insisting they learn how to play an instrument, looking at their collar before they go out the door and touching it up, even when they're 7 years old.
It's no accident that we decided to interview Benedict at a Marriott. The international hotel behemoth was founded by Mormons, a business that began as a single root beer stand in 1927. And as Mormons climb the corporate ladder, quite often they reach down to help another Mormon.
Is there a Mormon network?
I think there's a terrific Mormon network. It starts in church, and you meet a guy, and after going to church with him for 2 years or school, you say, he's a good guy. I trust him. I know his wife. My kids played with his kids. So 3 years from now, when you're looking to put a deal together, who do you call? You call that guy.
Hard work, perseverance, thrift, all seem to be part of the Mormon DNA.
Is there a song, there's like a Mormon hymn about like shoulder to the wheel? What is it?
Shoulder to the wheel. It's and push along, do your duty with a heart full of song. And so we all have work, and says, let no one shirk, put your shoulder to the wheel. And so that's what we sing.
Put your shoulder to the wheel, push along. It's an old pioneer hymn that is motivated by the fact that Mormons had to put their shoulders to the wheel and push handcarts across the United States. We are constantly reminded that our ancestors had to work harder than we do. Don't take that for granted.
The next generation of Mormon executives is putting its shoulder to the wheel at business schools from Provo to Cambridge. And powerful banking giant Goldman Sachs has located its second largest office in North America. Where? Salt Lake City, of course.
Do Mormons in business have something to prove?
I think when people go into business, for sure, they have a little bit of an edge on their shoulder that says, I need to do this a little better. I need to work a little harder. I should be the first one in the office and the last one to leave.
And that's the way it is with David Neeleman, who left JetBlue in 2008. And not coincidentally, has since started the fastest growing airline in Brazil, where he served his mission. The father of 9 children believes the most important thing he can do on earth is please God.
God's spiritual blessings, to me, are more important than material blessings. If you strip it down to the tenets of the church, you know, it really is just good people trying to live good lives and trying to help people.
And that's all found in another book. There's one in every room of the Marriott hotel chain.
Harry Smith here with us. So how is this different from the brother and sisterhoods you find across the country among firefighters, law enforcement, those who have been deployed together, close quarters, military for 2 years? What are the differences?
I think there is some code there to know that a fellow Mormon has served this mission, because one of the things that happens to every little Mormon kid from the time they're very, very small, start saving money for your mission. You pay for your mission yourself. The church doesn't send you, you and your family send you to this place. And when people come back from that and they have that brotherhood, they are all in.
That would be a key difference. Harry, I know we're going to talk to you later on, your second story in the hour about how Mormons take care of their own. But after the break, how it all started, little Mormon history and tradition, and why so many Americans still today are suspicious of the religion.
I don't think they've done a good enough job opening up. They've been very secretive, and it causes people to think of it as a mystery.
Welcome back. The Mormon Church, as you see here, claims a membership of about 6 million people in the U.S. That's about 2% of the U.S. population. The other 98% of us don't tend to know much about who Mormons are and what they believe. In fact, a recent survey found that a large majority of Mormons believe Americans as a whole are uninformed about their faith. So, here now, how it all started and what Mormonism has come to mean. It used to be there was the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and there were the Osmonds, and that was about all many of us knew about Mormons. That isn't the case anymore.
I'm gonna be a Mormon.
A Mormon? Are you sure?
Come on, nailing a different wife every night, that's a no-brainer.
Comedy now takes liberties with Mormons, say nothing of the polygamy-based dramas, and then there's Broadway.
The Book of Mormon.
It's a hugely successful Broadway show, and veteran Yale professor John Butler, who has studied and taught religion for over 30 years, reminds us Mormonism is a hugely successful religion.
It's a distinctly American religion. It is the most successful of the religions created in America.
To be more exact, it was created in Palmyra in upstate New York. In 1823, a man named Joseph Smith reported visions and visitations from an angel named Moroni. And this is how the church depicts what happened next in their own video. Smith is then told where to find a set of golden plates on a hillside in the New York countryside. They are said to have contained an ancient language from around 600 BC, which when translated became the Book of Mormon. Even though the angel Moroni took the plates back, a religion was born. And before anyone should judge that story, Professor Butler gently reminds us every religion has its own amazing stories.
What Americans, what critics have a hard time accepting is a belief in the Book of Mormon, in the angel Moroni, in the golden tablets. And what can one say? Is it really fair to criticize that when you also accept the idea that Jesus walked on water, or that the Red Sea parted?
Behold his mighty hand!
In various fits and starts and in a number of individual groups, early Mormons moved to Missouri, Ohio, and Illinois. They were persecuted, arrested, and several were killed, including the founder, Joseph Smith, at the age of 38. Under the leadership of others, including Brigham Young, whose great-great-great-grandson, by the way, is Hall of Fame quarterback Steve Young, they got as far west as Salt Lake City, Utah, and set up camp as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS for short. But part of the history of the church that they can't shake is polygamy.
It's impossible to reinvent our history, and that is our history. It is what it is, and we make no apologies for that.
Stephen Snow is the official church historian. He concedes that even though polygamy was officially banned a century ago, it's something the church still has to deal with.
We believe that was actually God's will at the time, but we believe in 1890 that stopped, and our prophet told us that that was no longer acceptable.
Critics in other religions have openly called them a cult. While Mormons consider themselves Christians and believe in the Bible, there are some key differences. Among them, Mormons believe Jesus visited either North or South America after his death and resurrection. Mormons don't drink, no caffeine, cigarettes, or swearing either. They are expected to tithe 10% of their income to the church. Ideally, theirs is a wholesome family and church-based life. Until now, it's also been very private, despite some very public figures, from Napoleon Dynamite to the top Senate Democrat Harry Reid, and of course the man who wants to be the next president. Why do you think those of us non-Mormons don't know more about the Mormon Church?
I don't think they've done a good enough job opening up. They've been very secretive, and it causes people to think of it as a mystery.
Abby Huntsman grew up in a family considered Mormon royalty. She's a descendant of one of the 12 original Mormon apostles. Her father, John Huntsman, former Utah governor, former U.S. ambassador to China, ran unsuccessfully for the GOP nomination. Abby is one of 60 Huntsman family grandchildren and is the only one to marry outside her religion. She is no longer active in the faith.
There are a lot of wonderful parts to the church. The family aspect is what I love the most about it, but it's very black and white still. There's no gray area. You either are in or you're out, and you live by the Mormon doctrine or you do not.
In this modern world, some old-school rules still govern the Mormon Church, and that means no non-Mormons allowed inside their temples. Ann Romney's parents, as non-Mormons, weren't allowed to see their own daughter married inside the temple in what's called a sealing ceremony. The same was true when Abby Huntsman's parents were married. Her grandparents, as non-Mormons, had to wait outside on the couch. What about the fact that you and I right now could walk across Fifth Avenue into St. Patrick's Cathedral? No one would care or wonder what our religious affiliation is. I can't get into the Mormon temple. Will that ever change?
I hope it does, but...
What goes on in there?
I don't think that it will. Nothing crazy. It's very much a sacred thing for Mormons and causes a lot of people to feel maybe not good enough. Why am I not allowed in there? So this idea of maybe being more accepting and moving with the times a little bit is much needed in the church today.
Then there are the Mormon undergarments, the subject of much fascination among non-believers. The temple garments, they're called?
I've heard every other name in the book.
Yeah,
I won't repeat them, but...
There are websites where Governor Romney wears a thin outer shirt. People post pictures and say, there it is. What are they? What does it mean?
It's very much a symbolic thing that people wear to remind them of Christ. And when I was in the church, I remember hearing stories about people being caught in a fire, and the garments were the shield that protected them from harm. Most Mormons sleep in them, wear them wherever they go, work out in them.
And if I asked a senior member of the church, can you show them to me? Can I see? Do you think anyone would be willing to strip away the mystery and say, yeah, it looks like what you would buy at Walmart?
I think to them it would be something that's disrespectful to them because they honor it, and that, you know, when they wear it, they feel a sense of pride.
Mormons are famously obsessed with genealogy, and they believe in baptizing the souls of the dead, even non-Mormons. It's meant to give them a chance to go to the true heaven.
We believe everyone, either in this life or the next, will have an opportunity to accept or reject the fundamental beliefs that we believe.
But when it was found they were baptizing even Holocaust victims who died because they were Jews, the church admitted the mistake and acted to stop it. There is another part of Mormonism in the recent past that was late to change, and that's racism. African Americans were not allowed to become full members until 1978.
We're not certain even today why that practice or why that doctrine was in place. It pained me as a young man.
The Mormon Church is under pressure to move fast, faster than they'd like to open up because they're being pushed by questions and public fascination with their religion, in no small part because a Mormon could be the next president of the United States. The major party nominee is a Mormon for the first time in American history.
And I will tell you that Mormons do believe this is their moment in time, and they're very excited about it.
Abby Huntsman, part of a prominent Mormon family who had her own journey within the Mormon Church. Up next here tonight, we go inside a thoroughly modern Mormon family and look at life amid those rules about food and clothes and worship. We're back. An impressive figure here. 77% of American Mormons say they go to church every week. That is vastly more than other faiths. Mormons are a devoted faith. Many of them are devoted to having kids. They have a lot of them, and those kids grow up in a church where the two genders, male and female, are not equal. That is one tradition among many that has survived despite all the changes going on in the world outside the church. Kate Snow has visited Mormons around the country who represent a lot of different facets of Mormonism while keeping it all in the family.
In a predominantly Mormon neighborhood outside Salt Lake City, Julene Jackson is raising her family the way she was raised, in a devout Mormon household. She's a stay-at-home mother to Kayla, Frank, Mary Alice, Al Jr., and Marie, and their lives are filled with tradition and ritual.
When King Lamoni heard that Ammon was preparing his horses in his chariot,
early every morning they spend at least half an hour together reading scripture. And every Sunday they spend 3 hours in church.
I just want to stand and bear my testimony.
From the beginning, Julene and her husband Al were an unlikely combination.
Me and Brother Jackson have been married almost 20 years, and they say that when you've been married that long, you begin to look like each other. And I told the kids, I'm not so sure that will ever happen with me and Al.
In that church, you were pretty much the only black face in a sea of white faces.
Right.
What's that like for you?
You know, it hasn't been an issue for me.
And I ask in part because of the history of the church, and you know it better than I do.
Remember, as late as 1978, black Mormons were second-class citizens, banned from the priesthood and barred from the temples.
Have you ever faced any kind of discrimination in the church?
Never.
Al was raised a Southern Baptist. That all changed once he met Julene.
Your mom, what did she think when you called her and said, I'm dating this Mormon girl?
Well, after the dial tone, she just didn't understand. She had no idea. She didn't know what a Mormon was.
For Al, marrying Julene meant fully embracing her faith and living by a code of conduct.
Do you ever find any of it overbearing?
No, not at all.
This is a fun time to be Mormon because people actually are like, want to know, you know. Do you really do that?
People like us.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
why we're
Is this
sitting
for
here.
real? I mean, come on. Are you just putting on?
So here come the questions that everybody has. Do you drink caffeine?
No.
Have you ever had a cup of coffee?
I've never had a cup of coffee. I had a Coke.
Here it comes. Literally one Coke.
Isn't that funny?
In your 43 years.
Even
Caffeine.
I may have a Dr. Pepper once in a while. I can't lie to you, Kate.
And no smoking?
No smoking.
Not a sip of wine? Not a glass of beer?
No.
Feel like you're missing out at all?
When I see people that have parties that have had too much to drink, I don't want to go there. I like kind of being in control of my thoughts and what comes out of my mouth, you know.
I saw a little peek of the white before.
Right.
Is that, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
my
if that's
garments.
inappropriate
Those
for me
are-
to say.
No, that's fine.
Oh, the garments.
Everybody always wants to know about
Magic
that.
underwear.
And you wear those every day?
I do. You know, it's a reminder of who I am and what I stand for, and what I'm about.
Can you understand why some people might be wary of what they see as the uniformity of Mormonism?
Yes, but you know, now you have to understand, we're not the cookie cutter family. So when you say uniformity,
but you live by the code of conduct, you live by the rules of the church.
Right.
There are people on the outside who see that as a negative, that it's too much conformity, too much uniformity. What do you say to that?
Well, you know, I don't see so much of it as a uniformity code that we all have to kind of march to. I want to live the gospel of Jesus Christ. I want to live the commandments of the Lord, and they bring me happiness. I'm not doing anything I don't want to do.
Neither is Joanna Brooks. She is a rare Mormon woman, a feminist who's taken a public stand. Joanna teaches literature at San Diego State University and is the author of a candid memoir called The Book of Mormon Girl.
Ever since I was a kid, I've had this core conviction that men and women are equal in the sight of God. But I've also been raised in a church with very clearly delineated notions of what men should do and what women should do. I see young men passing the sacrament. My daughter says to me, "Mom, why don't girls pass the sacrament?" I say, well, this is the way things are.
And she's vocal on the subject of whether women can have equality in the Mormon faith if they cannot hold leadership positions.
We wrestle, some of us, with the fact that women are not ordained to the priesthood. That's not an issue for all Mormon feminists. It is for some of us. Many of us have questions about decision-making authority in the church.
I want to show you the first tomato of the season.
But it says something that she can appear on national TV and be critical and still be a practicing Mormon. 20 years ago, the church never would have stood for it. As recently as 1993, feminist scholars at Brigham Young University were excommunicated for expressing some of the same ideas.
Well done. I sure hope the church doesn't consider me a critic. I just want there to be a little more room for people like me.
Mitch Main is trying to work out his place in the church as an openly gay man. From the time he was a young boy, he knew his sexuality would be at odds with his family's faith.
Within the faith itself, at that period of time, it was viewed as an illness. It was viewed as a sickness. You were told you were afflicted, you are sick, you are broken, you are less than.
What did your mom say?
I want to preface this by saying that my mom ended up being, you know, my best friend and my ally. The first words out of my mom's mouth when I told her that I was gay was, "It would have been better for me if you'd been born dead than gay."
Shunned by his family and shunned by his church, Mitch was sent to therapy designed to change his sexuality. It didn't.
I am Mormon. I am a child of my father, and I am a gay man. And to try to break those two apart is in essence breaking apart my spirit.
Mitch turned his back on Mormonism for many years. When he returned, he found it less openly hostile to an openly gay man. While he's free to march in support of gay marriage, the church still opposes it. But in San Francisco, he wasn't just welcomed in his congregation, he was elevated to a leadership position, a first for a gay man. As long as he remains celibate, he can serve.
If you met somebody tomorrow and you wanted to have a relationship, would you have to give up your leadership role?
I would probably have to give up my leadership role.
If Mitch Maine's challenge is staying in a church that doesn't fully accept his lifestyle, Al and Juleen Jackson have a different struggle, raising kids in a culture that can seem relentlessly secular and sexual.
As parents, do you ever feel bombarded?
It's hard to sit down and watch a ball game with my son because of the commercials. They sexualize everything, which he had received.
Every day we read the scriptures, and then we also study out of a little pamphlet called For the Strength of Youth.
Virtue loveth virtue, light cleaveth unto light.
What do you think that means?
So if you're virtuous and you have a light with you, then you should be dating someone who's also virtuous.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
At 17, their eldest daughter, Kayla, loves piano, wants to see the world, and have a business career. And by now, she's had a boyfriend.
A lot of people will say, well, your parents must make you do this. I understand. I feel bad for you that you have to follow these standards. But for me, it just comes a point where I accept it myself.
Can I ask you a really personal question?
Mm-hmm.
When you had the boyfriend for a little while, did he want to get physical?
Yeah. Somewhat. It was fun to have a boyfriend and someone to hang out with all the time, but I just didn't want to have it go that far, and so that's when...
You weren't going to break that promise.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully they can see for themselves. You lay the foundation, but ultimately they have to go out in the world and figure it out for themselves.
And if one of your kids came to you and said, I slipped up?
Well, and that's the beautiful part of the gospel, is the atonement is real. You can be forgiven.
Kate Snow reporting there. And about that last bit about forgiveness, not all Mormons feel forgiven. Brings us back to a portion of our conversation with Abby Huntsman. She told us about being called in front of her bishop in the Mormon church. It had to do with the young man she later married, and it led to her separation from the Mormon church.
The reason I really left was because of an experience I had with a bishop.
Something you've talked about before? Or?
Yeah, no, it was when I first met my husband. At the time, we'd only dated 3 weeks, and he found out that I was dating someone that wasn't a member of the church and called me in and said, I'm very concerned about you and your life, and do you love him? And I said, well, I've only known him 3 weeks, and what I do know, he's a great guy. And at that point, I said, whoever I fall in love with, I fall in love with. I'm not going to live in this bubble anymore. I just need to live my life for me. And he basically said, you know, you're not going to have the blessings. Your kids will not be blessed if you end up marrying this man. And he's such a great guy. And in my heart, I get kind of emotional about it, because for a bishop to tell me how I needed to live my life and that I would or would not be blessed because of it was very difficult. And I know that I'm one of many, many women that go through experiences like that. And I walked out that door and I couldn't go back.
Abby Huntsman, a descendant of one of the 12 original Mormon apostles, and now a former member of the Mormon Church. Coming up next here tonight, Harry Smith is back with a rare look at how the church takes care of its own, all of it directed from one massive nerve center.
This would make the people from Costco jealous, I think. It almost seems endless.
Welcome back. 13,628. That is the number of Mormon bishops in the United States. They're all laymen. Mitt Romney used to be one of them. Their job includes discipline and spiritual guidance and tending to church members who are in need. Harry Smith has been given a rare look inside a huge but little-known effort by the Mormon Church, spearheaded by those bishops, to show what they believe it means to be your brother's keeper.
Mormons believe, and Jesus taught, that faith without works is dead. Spend a little time with a Mormon, and you'll get a sense of just what that means. Kirk Green heads a suburban Mormon congregation near Salt Lake City.
It's one thing to go to church, listen to someone speak, go home and say, "Oh, that was nice." It's different to have that get into your soul and try to see people that need help and figuring out, can we help them?
Help that comes from the pocketbooks and good works of fellow Mormons. Devout Mormons fast once a month, and the money they would have spent on those meals gets collected and goes to help the needy. And as it turns out, Mormon incomes mirror those of the rest of us, which means there are a lot more than a few Mormons who could use a lift.
As a matter of fact, 1/4 of all U.S. Mormons earn $30,000 a year or less. And when they have trouble making ends meet, their needs are met in a big, big way.
This is a rare look into the Utah Bishop's central warehouse in Salt Lake City.
But there's sugar, there's salt, there's wheelchairs, there's toilet paper.
A 500,000 square foot monument to the Mormon commitment to helping others.
This is crazy.
Rick Foster is a manager of the church's welfare operations.
It looks to me like there's almost everything in here to sustain human life. Is that an exaggeration?
It is not at all. Nothing extravagant, but basic commodities that you'd find in any grocery store.
This would make the people from Costco jealous, I think. It almost seems endless.
And almost everything in here was produced by the church for charity, not for profit. The Mormon industrial complex was created to perpetuate self-reliance.
We grow a lot of our products on farms, raise cattle on ranches, fruit in our orchards.
There's enough food and supplies here to support the church's welfare efforts for an entire year and to attend to natural disasters around the world.
This is mind-boggling.
The peaches and turkey chunks from this warehouse are trucked to 110 regional storehouses around the country.
We pray for safety and for protection.
But the trucks don't move until the drivers pray and sing. Not far from the Bishop's storehouse is a place called Welfare Square, where Mormon volunteers turn Mormon milk into Mormon cheese.
You like it?
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, we could probably get you a block.
It's a veritable showplace of Mormon generosity, even dripping in Mormon honey.
Is it hot?
Yeah.
And that Mormon honey will taste great on this fresh-baked Mormon bread. Mormon volunteer Louise Oldroyd said this to me: "Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could solve the world's problems with a loaf of bread?" Indeed. And to receive a loaf of bread and more, all a needy Mormon has to do is ask. Local bishops like Kirk Green sign off on a form which is even better than cash.
There's tuna, beef stew, there's meats.
There's a list?
Yeah. There's actually a bishop's order form, which is like a shopping list. And, it's not fancy, but there's all of the basics that you can do really well with.
Right.
And a few nice things. I noticed there's ice cream on this one.
No money changes hands here, or in any of the 142 stores like it around the world. Kirk Green runs a successful digital printing business, and he serves as one of the unpaid bishops in Centerville, Utah. All Mormon bishops are regular church members and are called to serve, typically for around 5 years.
How many do you want?
Monitoring the spiritual and temporal needs of his congregation of 420 people is a huge responsibility.
Is it daunting?
Some days, yeah. And you think to yourself, that could be me tomorrow.
Can you start in that patch and I'll start over here?
That was Jamie Reynolds' situation. After her divorce, she needed to ask Bishop Green for help. The bishop and his neighbors provided this garden plot for Jamie, and every now and then she still comes to a storehouse with her bishop's list.
And without sounding crass, it almost sounds like if you're going to be a Mormon, this is not a bad fringe benefit.
No, it's true. I'm not going to splat on the cement at the end of it. If I fall, there's somebody to help.
There is a significant safety net.
Yes. For me, that's a really comforting thing.
Hello there. Good to see ya.
Comforting volunteers like Sue and Bob Moore try to remove any stigma of having to make a trip here.
Go right in here, 2 hamburger patties. We try and make them feel very welcome. Some people come and it could be the worst day of their life. They're really down. They've lost their job, their children are hungry.
I've done nothing but meet volunteers all day today. And they all say the same thing.
Oh, yeah, but that's what we're taught. This is what the Savior would want us to do.
As we said, you can't pay for the items in the store, but you can do volunteer work in exchange.
We don't just give them food. We put them to work. Life isn't about getting something for nothing.
And it's not just for Mormons, but you do have to meet with a bishop first.
We'll help anyone at any time as long as we're able to do so and have those resources available to do so.
And you don't sit there saying, I'll help you just so long as you convert.
Absolutely not. There's no tie to that whatsoever.
Welfare Director Rick Foster says the goal is to get people back on their feet as quickly as possible. To that end, there are now 327 Mormon employment offices around the world. And if you need clothing, there are thrift stores too, and a lot more we haven't shown you. Mormons really do believe they are their brother's keeper.
It's a commitment and a belief to follow Christ in the way that he lived his life. And one of the biggest ways he lived his life was taking care of the poor, those who were less fortunate, those who didn't have all the breaks in life.
So let's go back through the job description of a bishop and a subplot here. Can you picture Mitt Romney as a bishop?
Absolutely. And that's, so many people in the Mormon church wish he would sort of reveal a little more of that, because you were sort of the pastor of a flock, as it were. 400 and some members, people who were having trouble making their ends meet, trouble with a rent check. They would come to him on a consistent basis and say, how do I make this work? And he would counsel them and tell them, well, here's the list, and check off the items and go ahead and go to the store.
Now, something you just mentioned, of all the Mormons you met and dealt with in conjunction with this story, would you say most would be more comfortable if Mitt Romney talked more or less about his Mormonism?
I think more, because it was interesting. During the break, I was saying, we met these different people from so many different walks of life. One of the women there with the hairnet on, she's a PhD candidate. The other guy's a financial planner. You would not be able to distinguish these people from any other walk of life except for their total commitment to their faith.
And I can't believe you actually brought this.
I brought it along because the folks there in Welfare Square said Brian is welcome here anytime.
I told you I wasn't going to mention your hat, but since you put it on the table, so to speak. Harry, thank you. Harry Smith. You can see more of Harry's very rare look inside this massive Mormon effort to feed the needy. It's on our website tonight. Up next after a break, if you've seen the Book of Mormon on Broadway, if you've heard anything about it, you might find it surprising to learn there's a Mormon in the cast. We'll hear from him after this. Welcome back. Here's another number for you. The Book of Mormon has grossed an estimated $100 million on Broadway so far, give or take. It is very funny. It is very dirty, a deep shade of blue. It's also one of the toughest tickets still in all of New York, and it has spawned a touring company production in Denver and soon in Chicago. And it's a very strange experience for one member of the cast. Clark Johnson is the only Mormon actor in the Book of Mormon, and tonight we hear from him about what that's like.
When someone like me is raised Mormon and is working at the Book of Mormon, I have a daily reminder of my past, my history, and the life that I once fully embraced. My name is Clark Johnson. I've been in Book of Mormon the musical since January of 2011, which was the beginning of the Broadway rehearsal process. When I walked in for the casting director, I sang my 16 bars of music, and before leaving the room, I said, in all honesty and fairness, I have to tell you that this is probably my life story. I was raised Mormon, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for you, but do with it what you will. I don't know if being Mormon helped me, but I got the job, so I must assume that it couldn't have hurt. Hello!
Hello. My name is Elder Price, and I would like to share with you the most amazing book.
When I was 19, a letter came to my house. As I'm opening and reading it, it says, Clark Lawrence Johnson, you have been called to serve in the Culiacan, Mexico mission. This moment is such a defining moment in your life. During the 2 years in Mexico, I learned how to step out of myself and care more about others than I cared about myself. I learned to forget my problems and to focus on other people and what they needed. That was a very powerful experience for me. I know I don't sound like an ex-Mormon, but I am one. I had a long path out of the church. I didn't make it in one day. I didn't feel that I could reach my full potential as a human being inside the church, as a gay person. My parents are currently serving a full-time mission in Palau, Micronesia, which is a small island a few miles away from Guam. They have not had a chance to come and see the show because they're abroad, and I don't know that they'll want to. They don't see rated R movies, and I think that if this musical had a rating, it would be R. When I'm on stage in the Book of Mormon, I look exactly like I looked when I was a missionary in Mexico. I am wearing a short sleeve white shirt because it was too hot to wear long sleeves. I'm wearing a tie, I'm wearing my tag that says Elder, I'm wearing dark pants. And there are times when I look down at my body and say, I'm still here. I'm still a missionary. I'm still sharing a message with the world.
Our thanks to Clark Johnson of the Book of Mormon. That is our special edition of Rock Center for this Thursday night. And just one more thing, thanks to the magic of television, Matt Lauer and Savannah Guthrie have a preview of what's on